Imagine you're walking down a street in Jerusalem and you see a group of Palestinian protesters marching towards a group of Israeli soldiers. You're watching the news and you see a report of a rocket attack on Israeli city. Israel has been involved in more wars than any other country in its founding. Why is this? What are the factors that have contributed to this conflict? The conflict between Israel and Palestine is one of the most complex and intractable conflicts in the world. In this video, we'll explore the factors that have contributed to the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Stick around to find out. Israel has initiated a war against Palestinian militant organization Hamas, following their unprecedented multi-pronged attack on Saturday, which involved air, sea, and land assaults. The large-scale surprise attack in Israel has resulted in over 1,200 casualties, with Israel launching retaliatory airstrikes causing at least 1,354 fatalities and injuring 6,049 in Gaza. Militants in Gaza have taken 150 hostages, prompting concerns of a potential Israeli ground invasion. The humanitarian crisis is worsening, with Gaza's power station shut down, hospitals facing fuel shortages, and over 330,000 people were displaced. This is the current state of affairs. Initiation of conflict and its scale. On Saturday morning, militants originating from Gaza launched a barrage of thousands of rockets towards Israeli towns. Subsequently, they breached the heavily fortified border fence with Israel, infiltrating deep into Israeli territory. In this excursion, Hamas gunmen were responsible for the deaths of numerous individuals, including both civilians and soldiers, while also taking hostages at times directly from their residences. It required over 2 days for Israeli forces to regain control, during which fierce battles unfolded in the streets. On Monday, the Israel Defense Forces announced the successful recapture of all Israeli communities situated along Gaza's southern border after the conflict with Hamas had concluded. According to IDF spokesperson Jonathan Conricus on Tuesday, the remains of approximately 1,500 Hamas fighters were discovered within Israeli territory following the attack that transpired on Saturday. These attacks marks an unprecedented level of both tactics and scale, as Israel had not confronted adversary in street warfare on its own soil since the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Additionally, the nation had never experienced a terror attack of this magnitude, resulting in the loss of a significant number of civilian lives. While Hamas had previously kidnapped Israelis, the simultaneous abduction of dozens of hostages, including children and the elderly, was a new and unsettling development. Hamas named the operation Al-Aqsa Storm and justified the assault as a reaction to what it characterized as Israeli action targeting women, the desecration of Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the continued blockade of Gaza. In response to the attack, Israel has declared a state of war and initiated Operation Swords of Iron, targeting suspected Hamas and Islamic Jihad facilities in Gaza. The conflict has now entered its 6th day, with Israel announcing a large-scale strike on Hamas target in Gaza as per the IDF statement on Thursday. Civilians in Gaza have been advised by the IDF to vacate their residential areas immediately for their safety, while Israeli military operations continue to focus on Hamas. All border crossing between Israel and Gaza have been closed, potentially indicating preparations for a ground incursion in the region. On Monday, Israeli Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant ordered a complete siege on Gaza, encompassing the cessation of electricity, food and fuel, and all other essential supplies. He additionally stated that the water deliveries would be halted. As of Thursday, Israel's Energy Minister Israel Katz asserted that these supplies would remain suspended until Hamas releases the hostages it currently holds. Furthermore, Israel has announced the formation of an emergency government and a war management cabinet as of Wednesday. Historical context of Israeli-Palestinian conflict and its escalation. Tensions between Israeli and Palestinians have persisted since well before the establishment of Israel in 1948. Over the decades, thousands of individuals on both sides have lost their lives, and many others have suffered injuries. This year, the level of violence has been notably heightened. The number of Palestinians, including both militants and civilians, who have lost their lives in occupied West Bank due to Israeli actions is the highest it has been in nearly 2 decades. This is also true for Israeli and foreigners, a majority of whom were civilians who have been victims of Palestinian attacks. In the 1967 war, Israel captured Gaza from Egypt but later withdrew its troops and settlers in 2005. Subsequently, the territory, which is home to approximately 2 million Palestinians, under the control of Hamas in 2007 following a brief civil conflict with Fatah, a competing Palestinian faction that forms the core of Palestinian Authority. Upon the Hamas takeover, both Israel and Egypt imposed a stringent blockade on the territory, a measure that remains in place. Additionally, Israel maintains an air and naval blockade on Gaza. The territory has been referred to as an open-air prison by Human Rights Watch. Over half of its population resides in poverty and faces food insecurity, with nearly 80% of its people depending on humanitarian aid. Hamas and Israel have been engaged in multiple conflicts. Prior to the operation on Saturday, their most recent war took place in 2021, extending over 11 days and resulted in the deaths of at least 250 individuals in Gaza and 13 in Israel. The assault on Saturday transpired almost exactly 50 years after the 1973 war, when Israel's Arab neighbor initiated a surprise attack on Yom Kippur, the most sacred day in the Jewish calendar, on October 6, 1973. If you are enjoying it so far, hit the subscribe button. Now, let's continue. Hamas history and ideology. Hamas, an Islamic organization founded in 1987, emerged from the Muslim Brotherhood, a Sunni Islamist group established in Egypt in the late 1920s. Like many Palestinian factions, Hamas views Israel as an occupying force and aims to liberate Palestinian territories. It considers Israel as an illegitimate state and opposes any engagement with it. Unlike the Palestinian Authority, which recognized Israel, Hamas opposed such recognition and rejected the Oslo Accords in 1993, which led to the PA's formation. Hamas positioned itself as an alternative to the PA, and its history includes numerous attacks on Israel, leading to its designation as terrorist organization by the US. EU. Israel accuses Iran of supporting Hamas. Hostage crisis and implication in the Israeli-Hamas conflict. Israel is currently in a state of war readiness and has initiated the mobilization of troops for a potential ground operation in Gaza. The nation has stated its intention to impose significant costs on Hamas for its attack and has plans to rescue Israeli hostages within Gaza. Israel has encountered situations in the past, but none of this magnitude. Previously, militants had predominantly demanded the release of prisoners held in Israeli penitentiaries in exchange for captured Israelis. For instance, in 2011, Israel exchanged 1,027 Palestinians for Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, and in 2004, it released more than 24 Lebanese and Arab detainees, including 2 senior Hezbollah officials, in exchange for Elhanan Tannenbaum, an Israeli businessman and Army Reserve colonel, along with the remains of 3 IDF soldiers. In 2008, Israel released 5 Palestinian inmates, 5 Lebanese prisoners, and returned the remains of nearly 200 Arab fighters in return for the bodies of 2 Israeli soldiers. Hamas claims to have taken over 100 hostages. Their presence in Gaza is expected to complicate any Israeli military operation there. The militant group's armed faction announced on Monday its intent to begin executing civilian hostages and broadcasting such acts if Israel targets individuals in Gaza without prior warning. This follows the statement from the IDF indicating their intent to assume control of Gaza Strip. The spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht, articulated their goal as putting an end to the Gaza enclave and having full control over the entire territory. When queried about whether they had ceased using the knock on the roof, which is the Israeli military's warning procedure for civilians before bombing a building. Hecht responded that Hamas did not employ such a warning. He emphasized that given the nature of war, knocking on the roof was not applicable, as the scale of the conflict was fundamentally different. Senior Hamas member Saleh al-Aruri conveyed on Al Jazeera Arabic on Saturday that Hamas is prepared for all possibilities, including war and escalation on all fronts. He further stated, "We are fully prepared for the worst-case scenario, including a ground invasion, which will provide us with the opportunity to determine the conclusion of this conflict." Regional and international dynamics in the Israeli-Hamas conflict. Hamas conducted its operation with precision and coordination, raising the question about potential foreign aid and the risk of broader regional conflict. Israel alleged the Iran provides significant support to Hamas, with claims of around $100 million annually. The U.S. State Department confirmed financial aid, weapons, and training from Iran in 2021, along with funds raised in Gulf Arab nations. While Iran's role in the recent attack remains uncertain, Ebrahim Raisi, the Iranian president, spoke with Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, congratulating the Palestinian people for their perceived victory. However, Iran's mission in the United Nations stated that they were not involved in the Hamas attack, emphasizing it as a Palestinian decision. The United States has deployed a carrier strike group to the eastern Mediterranean to deter potential Iranian involvement or an expanded conflict. Israel faces the risk of new fronts opening in the conflict. Israel maintains peace only with Jordan and Egypt among its immediate neighbors and remains in a state of war with Lebanon and Syria. Hezbollah, backed by Iran, expressed support for Hamas and targeted Israeli sites, raising concerns. Lebanon's prime minister designate seeks to avoid being drawn into the conflict, but a suspected infiltration from Lebanon to Israeli airspace has increased tensions. In conclusion, the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas is a complex and evolving situation, marked by heightened tensions, military operations, and a growing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The historical context, the involvement of regional players, and the potential for further escalations make this a critical issue with far-reaching implications. As the international community closely monitors developments, efforts toward de-escalation, diplomacy, and humanitarian aid become increasingly vital to address the pressing challenges at hand. The situation continues to evolve, and we will continue to keep a close watch on the development as they unfold. If you like this video, click on the next one shown on the screen. I'm sure you'll like it. Thanks for watching.